Hi, I'm Dan Sanguinetti, and this is Film Rhapsody. And welcome back to Film Rhapsody for the year 2020. I'm your host, Dan Sanguinetti, and I'm sitting here with Russell Lee.
Hello.
Now, we've been working pretty hard on a number of different things, including production of Alice. What that means is that we haven't quite got season 2 together yet.
Every now and then we want to sleep, people.
Yeah, so we had a little chat. A little discussion on what we could possibly do to fill in the gap until we had season 2 ready to go. So we thought we'd do a bit of a throwback because we love doing throwbacks. We thought we would do a clip show.
Yep, we're stealing another page from Kevin Smith's book. And just like the Clerks cartoon of 2000 whatever, we're doing a clip show way too early.
Oh, well, I actually think we've got some great episodes from season 1 to look back at.
And of course, as everyone knows, clip shows are a tried and tested part of the entertainment industry. We all love them. A great way of saying we love you. Thank you for tuning in. Here's another episode. We couldn't actually be bothered making you one.
I have to admit, I completely understand the reasoning behind producers deciding that we need to do a clip show episode. I mean, it's to do with resource. And the fact is the last few weeks, last month and a half of 2020 has just been some of the busiest weeks of probably my life. We had Alice that was shooting for our second block. I've run a number of workshops, had a number of new clients come on board. It's been so busy here at Sanguinetti Media. So the time to actually produce a new episode, I guess, we had to come up with something. And so I guess this is where we're going to throw back to something that we are quite familiar with.
Well, something you're familiar with. Me, I tend to forget the clip shows. Except for the bad ones. We both remember Star Trek.
Yes, Star Trek, the one where Riker... He's got some parasite in him and he's dying and he goes through a whole lot of memories, which at the sound of it sounds like an innovative idea, but its execution sucked.
Well, you have clip shows like Stargate after 1 season. You have Star Trek The Next Generation after 2. You have Happy Days after 42 seasons. Some shows just don't have enough good stuff to show.
The good thing is I think we've got plenty of great stuff. We've collated some of our best highlights of season 1, and we're going to talk it through with you, and hopefully you'll enjoy them as much as we have, and you're looking forward to joining us for the rest of season 2. So to kick things off, we start with our first clip, which comes from the first episode, where I sat down with my buddy Declan Shrub.
Thanks for having me, Dan, on the first episode. It's a great honour. I love podcasts and I love you.
Thanks, Dick. We've got a long history, I guess you could say.
You're going to talk about the time we kissed in Amsterdam, aren't you? You've already brought it up. I didn't want to go there, but we're already there. It was a mistake, and I loved it.
We started producing a feature film together, I think, as a result of a fairly coherent pitch that you made to me in the Gus's.
Yeah.
And then that resulted in us getting some, we won some competition. It didn't feel like we won, but there was some competition, and that resulted in us.
I think that was in 2012 as well. I think that was like later 2012.
And the end of the year.
Yeah, because I took part in the Screen ACT's accelerator. No, it wasn't accelerator pod. It was called the Low Budget Feature Pod. Yeah. And at the end of the first few weeks of it, we had to pitch a film. And I'd written this zombie film, and I went to you because you'd made Theatre of the Dead, and I said, Dan knows how to produce a zombie film. He's the only person I know, and part of the requirement was that I attach a producer to be able to get into the next round. So I probably just sent you a message and said, hey, I've got an idea. Can you hear it? And I probably would have just said, can you come on as a producer? Just lend me your name. Just say for this piece of paper that you're going to be the producer, because I wouldn't have thought there was any chance of getting through. I'm just like, I need your name. And you said you actually have to come and sit down and pitch me the idea.
Oh, yeah, because I'm a hard ass and I make people work. We somehow found ourselves in a position where we had to make $1 million film and we didn't have $1 million to do it.
And that wasn't the plan either. The low budget feature pod was meant to be a $300,000 film or something like that. The idea was to do a Blair Witchy kind of story that you could make really cheap, and that was what we always planned to do. So I designed this story about these telecom tradies in one location, and the zombies outside, and instead of fighting the zombies and doing all this cool action, they just sit around drinking beer and hope that the zombies don't get inside, basically.
On the Halloween special, we take a look at Dan's questionable taste in horror movies.
So no, my number 2, I don't know, I reckon I'm going to get some groans over this one. But I think like the series for me is just so influential in my storytelling, in my horror interest in slasher movies.
It's
and
like
I guess
Human Centipede, is it?
No. And
No.
it is Scream 2. Nudes.
You hipster, you.
Well, you see, I believe you were a child of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I am a child of the 90s.
Oh, you poor sucker.
And Scream was quite influential. It came out I was a bit too young to see the first one when it came out.
I actually remember seeing the first one. I saw it at the Electric Shadows Theatre in Canberra.
Yeah.
And I think I knew nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it. I didn't know that Wes Craven did it. All I saw was the poster with Drew Barrymore, and I was like, "Oh, I like Drew Barrymore."
Yeah.
Had no idea about it, so I went into it completely cold.
Yeah.
Loved it. I do like the Scream films. I will give them shit,
Yeah.
but mostly because of all the copycats and clones that came out after it.
True. Yeah.
It started a genre of its own.
Yeah, it set the mold for slasher movies, basically. But that's what I liked it. In a way, I mean, why Scream 2 was, I think, really good for me as a influencing film is it dealt much more deeply into what horror films can do and sequels. Mm-hmm. I guess as
like My Nightmare 3.
Yeah, and in a way that a young person interested in media, I was just on the edge of really my interest in film really taking off when I finally saw Scream 2, which would have not been in 97 when it came out.
97 or 98.
Yeah, but it would have been like 99, 2000 is when I saw it. And that's when I was like being a filmmaker. So the whole idea of, these characters sitting in a room talking about movies and saying, what's the best film sequel when they're in a sequel.
There are rules to surviving a horror film.
Exactly. And I guess it just helped, form a opinion on how films exist and why they exist, and I guess there was a lot of like seeing these characters that I enjoyed watching in the first one, to see them sort of progressing and growing and kind of trying to pick the whodunit side of it as well, which, to be honest, I mean, my interest in crime shows and things is always like trying to like work out who did the murder and stuff, and I think that's why that film works. Well, the series works so well because it's not just the slasher stuff.
I guess I've got a pretty funny Scream 2 story.
Yep.
I dragged my poor mother to see Scream 2. And it was a back cinema. We were surrounded by girls who screamed at every goddamn thing. But the funny PS was when they revealed, and this is a bit of a spoiler for people who haven't seen it, so hold on tight for a 20-year spoiler. When they revealed the first of the killers and Timothy Olyphant took the mask off, I had no idea who he was. I completely forgot his character in the movie. And he's in the movie a fair amount of time. He's a friend of Randy's. He has a scene with Sydney at the hospital. He isn't an invisible character by any stretch of the imagination. Just completely forgot who he was. So when the mask came off, I was like, who is this guy? And I remember Neve Campbell's character, Sydney, was like, Stu? And I'm like, is that the boyfriend from part 1? Didn't he die?
Yeah.
Is it the same actor?
Yeah.
And I had no cell phone, so I couldn't whip out IMDb and be like, no, that's not Johnny Depp's clone.
Yeah.
So I had absolutely no idea who it was. And it's kind of a weird thing. I don't know if it's the fault of the storytelling, the actor, me being a space cadet, but just the character left absolutely no impression on me.
Yeah. Funny you say a story because the symmetry I have is when watching Scream 3, when, spoiler, the killer is revealed to be Sydney's brother, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? And I mean, it took me a couple of viewings for me to get, oh, he's the director of the Scream 3 movies that their whole film.
The fact that when he took the mask off and he was like, Raymond Bridges,
Yeah.
director, you went like, I
Who?
don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, it was so very similar. Like, he just did not stand out as a villain. So his reveal was just.
That's kind of the problem with the Scream films beyond the first one.
Yeah, the first one did it so well with the boyfriend. Like, it was like, nah, it can't be the boyfriend. And it's like, it is the boyfriend. So our next clip comes from the episode where Russell decided he wanted to experiment with, what would you call it? Radio prank calling?
Hilarity.
So do we need to describe what you did, or we just let the listeners?
I entertained the masses.
Well, have we done any more prank calls since?
Play the clip.
We'll play the clip.
Okay. It's ringing.
Whoa.
Michael, it's Russell from Canberra. How you doing?
How you going, buddy?
Not too bad. Dan's here as well. Say hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hey, Dad.
So what are you doing tonight?
Uh,
Boring. Hang
not
up.
much. I'm waiting.
I'm glad you did that. I'm going to call him back. Sorry, Michael. How did you enjoy being part of our first podcast prank call?
It was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Dan.
Yeah.
Up again.
No, I'm not going to hang up again. I've actually taken the phone away from Russell. Yeah. Over the last couple of years, I've had this wonderful experience of working with a young man named Carl Emerson. He is a talented, insightful, inspiring young man, and his passion for film has given me a new sense of direction in regards to my own career. He is also a long-time radio host, so when we got him into the podcast studio, he was able to teach me a thing or two. So the result of that film, you won Best Screenplay at Focus on Ability, which I think is an incredible achievement and one that I'm really proud.
It was a huge sort of thing because I had no idea. They only chose the category at all only a week or so in advance, and the script wasn't the key part of the story.
Yeah.
That was that was really just the finished film more than anything. The script was one part, but suddenly here we are, and because of that, we're on to our new film, Two Graves.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, winning that award was a bit surreal. You weren't even sure if you actually won it.
I didn't know. Usually nominees are told of this stuff beforehand. I just sort of rocked up to Sydney because I thought, you know what, we put the film into this. What the hell? Let's just sit down and watch some of the other things.
Yeah,
I had no idea any of that was.
No. I mean, it was quite a surprise. A really nice surprise.
And then they played us on TV in February?
Yeah, that's right. I think it was on Foxtel.
Which I don't have, so I had to go all the way to Bruce, to an eccentric cat lady's house. But that was fun times all around.
Yeah. But as a result of the award, it came from the Australia's Writers Guild, who were involved in the judging of the film.
Oh, so it's not proper screenwriters and things.
Yeah, and so and that's how Jamie Brown, AACT nominated writer, got involved in the project. So he gave you a mentorship over a couple of months to help develop a new short film, which we've talked about before, Two Graves. But this is, I think this is the first time on this podcast that we're talking about it.
Or really since we entered production.
We did a Kickstarter for it, and that was
pretty successful, like $6,000.
Yeah, and we've had other things moving forward on it, and there's a few more applications that were put forward, hopefully, to get it moving forward. We don't know. We'll see what happens there. But let's talk about the writing process. So what was it like being mentored by Jamie Brown, being that he is, AACT nominated? He works on numerous TV shows. He's done some big movies. What was it like?
Well, as you can guess from what you just said, he was pretty busy. So most of it was we would, here at the office, go and work on bits of the script. We'd send him every revision each week or so. And then every few weeks, we'd have a proper conversation, check-in. Here's why this works, why this could work better. What's what's another avenue that this line of the story could take with some greater payoffs, things like that. But definitely the mentor part. The mentor part was more of like, I think a Spirit Obi-Wan Kenobi sort of thing.
Yeah.
And which was really possibly the most helpful part of it, that I was able to really evolve all this stuff on the ground.
One of the cool things about last season was sitting down with a whole variety of people from the film industry and picking their brains. We had a chance to sit down with Marissa Martin, an award-winning animator from Canberra. Dan spoke with his longtime friend Hugh Sanderson, an award-winning writer-director from Canberra. And I spoke with my mentor, Carol Seegers, a longtime story guru with decades of experience.
In the next few clips, you'll hear from Marissa, Hugh, and Carol as they share a little bit about their screen crafting journeys.
First, straight off the bat, to tell a good story, begin with character.
Yep.
Always. It's good to have plot and theme spinning around your head. You kind of want to know what it's going to look like and have a sense of that. And I say all this knowing full well, and the reason I brought this up before is all of my films started from wanting to see something on screen and maybe having a bit of an idea of a theme.
Yep.
But what I learned to do, and I didn't do this for the first few films, and I think Turn Back was the first one I really actually stopped and did this, but I think it's important to have a good sense of your plot and your theme, but then you got to park them, you got to put them in a drawer, and you have got to really figure out your character. First and foremost, without them being beholden to plot or theme. You want to find a journey where a flawed character, born out of some existential fear that they've got, goes on a journey and learns to either abandon that flaw or they tragically fail to abandon that flaw.
Yeah.
That is basically the essence of all storytelling on stage, on film, on television. You got to start there. Once you know your character, and this is the brilliant thing about, like, when you start just focusing on character, you'll realize that your plot will just so easily fall into place because it will make perfect sense for the journey that they need to go on. And then the true theme about your film will reveal itself.
Yeah.
Character will crystallize everything else for you.
Yeah.
Now, that's to tell a good story. To make a good film, which I think is the next layer on top of this, dynamics are essential. Dynamics are kind of this idea is that you're going on this up and down, or some kind of arc, right? And that's why I think like character change is just so inherent in film. You have a roller coaster that you're putting your audience on. You're setting them on a journey, they reach a midpoint, they go into crisis, they come out again, and it's a really intense ride.
Yeah.
Audiences love that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, what having good dynamics in a film means, it also means having an end game. That means we can compare the start and the middle of the film with the end of the film, and we can see different emotional points there.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, is to have your film resolve in some way. Dynamics also exist scene by scene and beat by beat. Audiences really love investing in character. They love piecing together story themselves. Don't overserve them with information or exposition. Like, trust that they're smart and that they want to figure things out.
Yep.
But audiences also love being surprised. They like thinking they have things figured out, but then get surprised as well. And you can't do that with a story that's a straight line.
Yeah.
You need dynamics. What you really want to do in your film is constantly give them cliffhangers, beat by beat, scene by scene, and act by act, that are tied to the character. It's not, will the bomb go off? That's not the cliffhanger. We're talking about, like, this character has just learned new information. Oh my God, what are they going to do next?
Yeah.
And beat by beat this happens. It doesn't have to be a big obvious moment, but it's just little switches of power of the character being empowered and having that flipped on their heads as the situation changes. If you can really get dynamics into your film, you're going to create something that's going to engage the audience.
Yeah, the thing is, animation is so different in a lot of ways because it's so time intensive and everything is slower. I mean, I've made a few things while I've been making this film. So I've made video clips and I've made other short films that have done okay and such, but nothing with the sort of, intention that Delamorte had. Yeah. So Delamortico is a steampunk film, so that, you can imagine what that means in terms of production design.
Yeah.
Huge amounts of design. And I think when we first started on it, and we took it to Project Pod, Screen Canberra's Project Pod, this was 8 years ago. And we started developing it into a much larger project. We really developed the characters to a point where, Mum and I were like, because my mother worked on it with me, we're like, we love these girls so much, we're ready to spend the next decade with them.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to do more with them than just the one film, but the money ran out. So we did all the bulk of the original filming and all of the acting, all of the voice recording, all of that early on, and then we spent the next sort of year or so making it, but then the arts grant ran out, so it was a matter of I need to work now and then I'll get back to it, work, get back to it, work, get back to it. When I made Tegan, I was fortunate enough that I was able to work three days a week, every week for 6 months, and then we shot it in that time. So I had 2 days a week of paid work that was enough to keep me, pay my bills, and then I could spend 3 full days a week shooting. And then I would spend almost every evening doing post on it, or building the next set, or making tiny props and stuff. Whereas this film, I had family commitments and life gets in the way and all those sorts of things, which meant that I couldn't work on it as intensely as I worked on Tegan, and I had to spread it out. But every time I looked at it again, I would go, "It's so beautiful." And that's what kept me going.
I guess one thing I want to find out is, like, I feel like I've always been a writer. It just took me as long as it took to get where I am now. I guess the question would be, can writing be learned, or is it something you need to be born with?
Yeah, that's a question always, often comes back. I think everybody is a writer to some degree. Some people have to work harder than others. And I think you kind of know whether you're a writer or not. I think if you have that unquenchable desire to get a story out, I guess then you're a writer.
That nagging little voice in the back of your head.
Exactly. But not everybody has, this is born with the skills. And I think that there are skills that you can learn. I'm absolutely sure of that. And if you listen to some of the greatest contemporary screenwriters, they will admit that. If you listen to an Aaron Sorkin, he learned what he knows from listening to plays. He listened to more than 1,000 plays. And it's just, it's osmosis. I mean, you're familiar with that screenwriting course I've got online. It's called Immersion. It works by osmosis. I really believe that the core skills you need to execute the script on the page, you can learn. So if you feel the inspiration and the desire, that's one thing, but you still need to learn the skills. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very long journey of rewrites, I think.
In sitting down with our collaborator Masood on our Man in the Moon short film, Dan and I received a lesson in optimistic sci-fi and why it means so much to him.
Tell us a bit about what is optimistic sci-fi?
Sure. So I didn't actually come up with the term optimistic. It was Gene Roddenberry who actually coined the term. So he set out Star Trek to be an inspiring world future where we've eliminated poverty, wars, and we're exploring the galaxy as one human family. So that appealed to me as a child. So just to give you a little bit of a history where I come from and why Star Trek appealed to me, and that's basically the foundation of what I like about optimistic science fiction. So we have been persecuted in Iran. So we're Baha'is. So we've lived through 2 civil wars. And as a child, I initially watched TV to escape that world. I guess that difficult, for a child, it's a lot to handle. Even though we had close family and we looked after each other, you're still exposed to that, the dark side of life and things like that. So shows like Star Trek and, at the time it was $6 Million Man, that kind of gave me an escape into a world where, there's still a bit of action and adventure, but at the end of it, people are helping each other, people are being compassionate and helping each other. That was the core thing that that attracted me to those type of shows. And then as an adult, when I kept watching Star Trek, there was something substantially very profound in the core philosophy of it, is that we're always advancing. We're always becoming better. So when Star Trek came along, there was this notion of anti-hero. So you had to be a bad guy to be a good guy. I don't believe that. I think everybody is good. We just do bad.
Yeah.
So this notion of the simplistic notion of good and bad, I think is a very outdated one. That's why some of the shows these days are much more complex. And I think Star Trek was way ahead of its time to tackle social issues in a way that wasn't confronting at the time to the powers that be. Yet it provided that. So it basically touched people's hearts in some ways. And that continued with The Next Generation and other shows like Babylon 5. And lately now there's the Orville that came along. So it's a similar concept with this other.
Sit back and enjoy this clip from the Christmas episode where I have an existential crisis about frog and pig breeding while Dan speaks about one of his favorite Christmas movies.
Coming soon on video cassette, Walt Disney Pictures presents a Jim Henson production of a classic Christmas tale.
Humbug.
He's the world's greediest man.
It's Ebenezer Scrooge.
Until the magical night he meets someone extraordinary.
Hello.
The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Kermit the Frog is on cocaine? Oh my God, is this why he's having an affair with a pig? Oh my God, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I think Russell's just worked out the Muppets. Or at least where the Muppets came from in the first place. The Muppet Christmas Carol is my number 3 film in this countdown. Christmas is not complete without the voice of Kermit the Frog. And even better when you've got Michael Bloody Caine being a Scrooge.
How the hell did a pig give birth to frogs?
The Muppet Christmas Carol, the songs that make up that film bring so much joy to me. And this film is not a childhood memory thing. All right? I saw this movie when I was younger, sure. It wasn't until I was a grown adult that I really, truly appreciated what the Muppets do to, I guess, my mood, my Christmas spirit.
Oh my God. Did someone eat like Robin's leg off? Is that why he's playing Tiny Tim? Oh my God. I wish I never got Disney Plus in the first place. Oh my God, it's horrible.
What I think the standout characters are in this is Gonzo and Rizzo. They don't have major parts, but they seem to come along for the journey in characters. I think they even self-acknowledge that don't exist in the Christmas Carol story, which I think gets the first big laugh for me out of it. But, for what the Muppets do in general, like beyond the Christmas realm of particularly this list, the Muppets are something that I go to when I am feeling awful. When I'm really struggling with life and things and the struggles that come with running a business, fighting to make it a living, to try and live towards my dreams. I find that when I go to the Muppets, it gives me a sense of peace. And that's what the Muppets Christmas movie does for me at Christmas. When I put this on, and I will be putting this on in the lead up to Christmas. Out of my 5 movies, this will be the first one that I will play to get me into the Christmas spirit as soon as we close up office at Sanguinary Media. In our final clip, we go back to episode 2, where Russell and I talked about our growing professional relationship. Back then, it had been about 6 months from when we had completed the Man in the Moon short film, and we were quite heavy into pre-production on Alice. So the Man in the Moon became, I think, a really great collaboration between us as not just producer, writer, director. Like, it was a way for us to understand how we work. And I mean, one of the things that, without being too gushing and, offering compliments to you, I mean, what I enjoyed about the process was that I had a particular vision as director, and you had a particular vision as writer. And I said, my vision is in this direction, your vision was in the other direction, and yet you listened, you understood that there was an end game that we're reaching for, and you were more than willing to work through the same themes and concepts but move it towards the direction that we were hoping for, and that's what the script was. And
I think also from my point of view is that it was never a question of, this is my idea, Russell, this is how we're going to do it. It was a collaboration. It was, okay, here's why I think we should change this, and you listened to my response, and we found a way that it worked well for both of us.
Yeah.
And it came out very great. I'm very proud of the movie.
Yeah, no, I'm it's one of my favorite movies as a director that I've had, because the vision was clear. The vision was so clear to me. It was on the page, in the script. Mm-hmm. And to be able to, and and as a filmmaker that, over my journey, I've spent so much time producing my own work. I've written my own scripts, and then I've directed them. Mm-hmm. And one of the big steps I've just learned as a filmmaker is, and where I have grown in my career, is actually taking other people's work and producing it to the, I guess, criteria or to the brief that they expect.
Is that a strange step to go from writing your own stuff and directing your own stuff to directing someone else's?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that is new and different. And I mean, and that's where the next step is as well, is as a producer who has produced other people's work, and then worked with the director, not necessarily always being the writer, but mostly being the writer.
Most of them are, yeah.
But now I am producing, right, your script,
yep,
Alice, and then I'm directing it. And that's a whole new world for me. I don't have many feature producer credits, but enough to get the feeling of, this is the process and the way to bring a film together. Here's all the necessary elements, and
yep,
here's the different things we need to make a film work. Now, as director, I've actually experiencing something I've never experienced before, where I'm now got this producer side of me working with a writer that is not my material, so has your own vision, have your own way of wanting it to appear, and then me as a director having my own view and my own idea of how it's going to appear, and it all sitting there, and then there's the other producers and their point of view, and so it's just like there's so many different things that are coming together, and it's this new, just totally new film experience that I haven't had before.
Does it make it easier being the director to sort of be like, I have the final say?
No. And that's because I've always had the final say as producer. And in the past, I've been...
now you have three more producers.
I've got three more producers working. But also as producer, you've got to also compromise with your creatives. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just a whole new experience for me at this stage. And we're still we're very close to moving pre-production. So that was our clip show. How do you think that went?
Fantastic.
Do you think we should do another one for season 2?
You bet.
All right, season 2 is coming soon. Make sure you subscribe in your podcast player so you can make sure you get our latest episodes right to your device. You can also support this podcast by becoming a patron for just $1 a month. Find us at patreon.com/Sanguinity Media. So until next time, I'm Dan Sanguinity.
I'm Russell Lee.
And this has been Film Rhapsody.
Film Rhapsody is produced by Russell Lee and Dan Sanguinetti for Sanguinetti Media. Find our home at sanguinettimedia.com.au.
Let's record that again.